Yeah, I'm telling you, it was like they simply vanished into skinny air. Detective James Barkley listened closely because the alien captain, Zithril, relayed the story of the mysterious disappearances that had plagued their planet for the past few months. The creature was in contrast to whatever he had ever seen earlier than, its scaled, iridescent body towering over him like a shimmering statue. Its golden eyes regarded to keep an intensity of awareness that unsettled him, as if it were looking at the human from some remote, superior realm. We've tried the entirety, Zithril persevered, our quality scientists, technologists, even our most skilled hunters. But regardless of what we do, we can't appear to discover an unmarried clue as to what will be in the back of these disappearances. The alien's phrases echoed through Barkley's mind as he surveyed the luxurious, unique panorama of the planet Ardanas. The air became thick with the fragrance of unfamiliar flowers and the calls of strange birds. The sky above was a colorful shade of crimson, in contrast to anything he had ever seen on Earth. It became a global in contrast to any he had ever imagined, and yet, notwithstanding its strangeness, it felt oddly familiar. As they walked through a dense wooded area of towering timber and sparkling foliage, Barkley observed himself marveling on the difficult internet of life that appeared to exist here. The bushes have been intertwined with each other, their branches forming a cover that blocked out maximum of the sunlight. The floor was covered in a thick layer of smooth, pink soil that gave manner to a network of winding rivers and sparkling streams. He should feel the warmth of the planet solar on his pores and skin, and the air became thick with the sounds of existence all round him. It became an international of beauty and mystery, and he knew that he became about to embark on a journey that might trade his lifestyles for all time. A detective, Zithril started, as you could see, our planet is an area of super splendor and wonder. But beneath this veneer of peace and tranquility, there is something dark and malevolent at work. These disappearances aren't random. They are part of a bigger plot, a plot that threatens no longer handiest our people, but the very cloth of our society. The alien paused for a second, its golden eyes boring into Barkley's soul. And we need you to assist us, detective. We need you to apply your specific attitude and your investigative talents to discover the fact at the back of those disappearances and produce and give up to this nightmare. Barkley nodded, knowledge the load of the duty that were located upon his shoulders. He had usually been proper at his activity, constantly been capable of locate the answers, while others couldn't. And now, on this alien global, he would have to draw upon all of his skills and intuition to clear up the mystery that had stumped the alien authorities. I'll do my high quality, he said, meeting Zithril's gaze. I won't allow you to down. Their adventure through the woodland continued, and as they walked, Barkley commenced to be aware of small details that others may have omitted. The manner a specific leaf was fashioned, the pattern of footprints within the soil, the manner a department had been these days damaged. It turned into these apparently insignificant clues that would lead him to the coronary heart of the mystery, and he knew it. He had a feeling that the answers he sought were hidden somewhere deep within the heart of the woodland, and he became determined to discover them. As the day wore on, they came across a small clearing amidst the timber. In the center of the clearing stood a large structure product of sparkling metal and glowing crystal. The structure pulsed with an eerie electricity, and Barkley should experience its energy emanating from it like a bodily pressure. This, said Zithril, is where we agree with the solutions lie. The alien captain hesitated for a moment before continuing. But be warned, detective. Whatever you locate right here may additionally change your life all the time. Barkley nodded solemnly, expertise the gravity of the state of affairs. He approached the structure cautiously, careful no longer to disturb any capacity evidence. As he drew closer, he observed a sequence of symbols etched into the metal surface of the structure. Each image seemed to glow with an inner light, casting eerie shadows across the floor. He reached out to touch one of the symbols, hesitating for a second as he felt its strength coursing via his palms. These symbols, he murmured to himself, they're not from around here. No, agreed Zithril, they're now not. They are human symbols, out of your world. But, here there, on this distant planet. It is obvious that a person or something out of your global has come here. Now we need to discover why and what their intentions are. As Barclay persisted to observe the symbols, he felt a peculiar sense of connection to them, as if they held the important thing to unlocking the mystery of his personal existence. He traced their traces and curves with his hands, committing them to reminiscence, till ultimately, he felt a tingling sensation pass through his body. The symbols started to glow brighter, and a sudden rush of strength filled the air. I suppose, he stated, his voice barely audible over the sound of his own coronary heart pounding in his ears. I think I've observed a manner in. Without looking forward to a response, he placed his hand towards the glowing floor of the shape. There was a moment of blinding mild, and then he became inside. The indoors of the alien machine changed into not like anything Barclay had ever seen. The partitions had been covered with extraordinary devices and glowing crystals, and a complex network of tubes and wires crisscrossed the ceiling. He observed himself status before a big control panel, included an extra of the human symbols he had visible on the outside. As he reached out to touch one of the symbols, he felt a surge of strength direction through his body. What are you doing?" Zithril demanded, his voice echoing through the metal chamber. That's not how you operate this component." The alien captain struggled to loose himself from the bonds that held him to the tree outside the shape. Barclay omitted the alien's protests, focusing alternatively at the manage panel before him. He traced the symbols with his arms, feeling their power float through him like an electric cutting edge. He had no idea what they meant or how they worked, however in some way he knew that he was meant to recognize them. As he persisted to examine the panel, the symbols started to glow brighter and brighter, and the energy inside the chamber intensified. I assume, he muttered to himself, I think I'm starting to recognize. The symbols regarded to be reacting to his touch, forming patterns and connections that made sense to him. He felt as if he changed into unlocking a mystery language, one that were hidden from him till now. Outside the shape, Zithril ultimately controlled to free himself from the bonds that held him. He watched in awe as Barclay endured to paintings the manage panel, his movements fluid and assured. What's he doing?" the alien captain requested, greater to himself than to all of us else. Where is he getting this know-how from?" Barclay did not pay attention to Zithril's query. He became too targeted on the mission handy. He felt as though he changed into on the point of something great, as though the information he become gaining would change now not best his existence, but the direction of history itself. The symbols continued to dance earlier than his eyes, guiding his palms as he labored the control panel. And then, with a final flash of light, the device hummed to existence, and the door slid open. Zithril gaped on the sight earlier than him. The indoors of the alien gadget was long gone, replaced through what appeared to be a acquainted starry sky. Barclay stood before them, radiating an aura of power and expertise. The human symbols on his fit glowed brighter than ever before. What have you ever executed?" the alien captain asked, his voice trembling with fear and awe. How do you understand the way to operate that device?" I don't know," Barclay responded, his voice distant. I simply felt a connection to it, like it turned into a part of me. And now?" He trailed off, looking around on the unusual panorama. Now I assume I can take us home. As Barclay advanced, Zithril noticed that the atypical symbols on his healthy had been no longer sparkling. Whatever electricity that they had possessed seemed to have been spent. The alien captain hesitated for a second, then reached out and touched the symbol on Barclay's chest. "You are indeed from my world," he breathed. But who are you? What is your cause right here?" Barclay grew to become to face Zithril, his eyes full of awareness that belied his younger appearance. "I am a soldier," he said. "And my cause is to guard my people, irrespective of in which I am or once I am needed." As they stood there, watching the celebrities twinkle within the night sky, Barclay knew that his lifestyles had irrevocably modified. He had been given a glimpse into the mysteries of the universe, and now he changed into decided to apply that expertise to safeguard the entirety he held expensive. But he also knew that the path ahead would now not be a clean one, and that the burden of his newfound electricity would weigh heavily upon his shoulders. "Barclay," Zithril said lightly, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You must apprehend that what you skilled in that device turned into no longer a dream. It became real. You were there, and also you noticed matters that no human need to see. It's herbal to feel shaken via it, however you cannot permit yourself to disintegrate." Barclay turned to face the alien captain, his eyes packed with a mixture of gratitude and melancholy. But how do I recognize what's real anymore? Everything feels so unfamiliar. Like I'm residing in a person else's pores and skin." Zithril considered this for a second, his antennae swaying gently in the breeze. "You must preserve directly to what you already know to be genuine, Barclay. You need to preserve on to your recollections, and the individuals who care for you. And you have to discover a manner to make feel of what you've got skilled. Only then are you able to desire to discover peace." The two of them persevered to walk via the unexpected terrain, their steps in sync, as though they were connected by means of an invisible thread. Barclay found himself interested in Zithril, feeling a feel of kinship and expertise that he had in no way skilled with absolutely everyone else. As they trudged through the night, he couldn't assist but wonder if this unusual, otherworldly being is probably the important thing to unlocking the mysteries that had haunted him for the reason that his go back from the alien device. The stars overhead appeared to spin slowly, as if they were part of a few extremely good cosmic dance, each one a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the insignificance of mankind inside it. But even inside the face of such massive scale, Barclay felt a newfound sense of reason, a willpower to guard his international and the entirety he held dear, irrespective of what the cost. As they rounded a bend in the terrain, they caught sight of a quainted searching structure within the distance. Barclay's coronary heart skipped a beat as he found out they had found their manor lower back to civilization. The street beforehand would be long and fraught with threat, but he knew that he could no longer be strolling it on my own. Zithril had end up his manual, his confidant, and his ally in this bizarre and surprising world. And together, they might face something challenges lay earlier than them, until they'd safeguarded all they held pricey. Barclay," Zithril stated softly, his voice like a mild breeze through the bushes. "You have to understand that the memories you convey with you currently, they're no longer simply your reminiscences. They are the reminiscences of all humanity. You had been given a glimpse into the unknown, into the very cloth of fact. It is your obligation to shield these memories, to make certain that they may be not forgotten or lost." Barclay took a deep breath, steadying himself towards the load of the obligation that had been thrust upon him. He knew that Zithril become right, and that the destiny of humanity rested on his shoulders. But he additionally knew that he couldn't undergo the wait by myself. He checked out the alien captain, their eyes assembly in a silent expertise. Together, Barclay stated, his voice slightly extra than a whisper. We'll face something comes, and we will see this through, no matter the fee. Zithril nodded solemnly, his antennae swaying gracefully. Yes, Barclay. Together we are able to face the unknown, and together we can be triumphant. The two of them continued on their journey, their footsteps now lighter, their hearts heavier with the load of the know-how they carried. As they drew in the direction of civilization, they knew that the challenges they faced might handiest emerge as more complex and threatening. But they also knew that they have been no longer on my own. They had every different, and the electricity of their bond might see them via the darkness and into the light. Barclay determined himself, continuously reliving the moments spent inside the alien machine, his desires filled with photos of not possible landscapes and beings that confounded description. He would wake up within the night time, sweating and trembling, certain that the device become nonetheless controlling his thoughts, nonetheless feeding him records that he could not probably recognize. But Zithril changed into usually there, his presence like a comforting blanket that soothed Barclay's frazzled nerves and allowed him to locate peace all over again. Captain, Barclay whispered one night, his voice slightly audible above the sound in their breathing. Why did it pick out me? Why did it provide me these recollections? Zithril paused for a moment, considering his words cautiously earlier than speaking. It isn't always for me to say, Barclay, he answered lightly. Perhaps it noticed something in you that it deemed worth, or perhaps it really wished someone to endure witness to what it had visible and skilled. Whatever the cause, you are not alone on this. I am here, and together we will discover a way to unfasten you from its hold close. The two of them endured on in silence, their steps falling in unison with the rhythm of their shared reason. As they neared the outskirts of the nearest agreement, they could see the glint of distant lighting dancing at the horizon, like fireflies flitting through a summer season meadow. The world round them seemed to return alive with the promise of wish and the possibility of redemption, and yet they each knew that the challenges that lay ahead had been more than any they had confronted up to now. We need to be cautious, Barclay, Zithril warned. The reminiscences you bring are powerful and threatening. They ought to without problems be twisted or misused through people who do no longer apprehend their true importance. We ought to find a way to show the truth approximately the gadget without inflicting damage to ourselves or to others. Barclay nodded, his grip tightening on the alien captain's arm. I recognize, he said hoarsely. But how? How will we even start to apprehend what we've visible and skilled? The of them persisted on in silence, their footsteps falling in unison with the rhythm in their shared unease. As they drew closer to the outskirts of the agreement, they might see the signs of existence turning into extra awesome. A flickering lantern right here, the remote laughter of youngsters there. But with each new sight and sound, Barclay determined himself increasingly on area, not able to shake the sensation that they were being watched, that the reminiscences were nonetheless lurking just past the brink of his focus, looking ahead to the perfect moment to strike. It became Zithril who ultimately broke the silence. We must discover someone who can help us, he stated decisively. Someone who has studied the system or who may additionally have encountered comparable phenomena within the beyond. Only then are we able to wish to recognize what has happened to you and discover a way to place and give up to it. They persevered on, their steps now guided with the aid of a newfound sense of motive. As they neared the middle of the agreement, they commenced to identify figures transferring amongst the homes and alleys, their paperwork silhouetted against the dancing mild of the fireflies. The air was thick with the scent of cooking meat and the sound of song, but Barclay could not help however experience, as if they had been taking walks into a trap, that the very things that made the settlement seem so alive have been also the matters that could be used in opposition to them. We must split up, Zithril counseled, his voice low sufficient that only Barclay should hear him. You can find a person who is probably able to help us at the same time as I stay close by, in case of trouble. Barclay nodded, his coronary heart racing on the idea of being by myself. All right, he stated, seeking to sound greater assured than he felt. But be careful. I don't need to lose you again. With one final reassuring pat at the alien captain's arm, Barclay became and disappeared into the group, his senses on high alert as he searched for someone who might have the solutions they sought. He wove through the throng of humans, cautious now not to attract too much interest to himself, his gaze darting from face to face, searching out all people who would possibly have the faintest inkling of what he became going via. It turned into in a small, dimly lit tavern that he ultimately noticed someone who regarded to match the invoice. The vintage human woman sat at a desk inside the corner, nursing a mug of ale and watching the sector pass by using with a weary, understanding gaze. Something about her made Barclay think that she had seen extra than her fair proportion of peculiar matters in her lengthy lifestyles, and he determined to take a threat and technique her. As he drew closer, he cleared his throat and requested, "Excuse me, ma'am? My name's Barclay. I became wondering if I is probably in a position to talk with you for a moment." The antique female looked up at him, her eyes narrowing barely. "Well, Barclay," she stated, her voice difficult and gravelly. "What is it that you want to speak about?" Barclay took a deep breath, looking for the words to explain what had been occurring to him. He glanced around, making sure that they were still on my own, before leaning in closer. "It's approximately these memories," he began. "They've been coming to me, flashing in my thoughts like some form of twisted slideshow. I cannot manipulate it, and I can't seem to cause them to depart." The antique lady raised an eyebrow, surely intrigued. "Go on," she stated, motioning for him to maintain. Barclay took every other deep breath, his palms trembling barely as he attempted to find the phrases. There. They may be about a gadget," he said ultimately. "A horrible device that's been used to manipulate people, to cause them to do matters against their will. And I suppose it is nevertheless available, still affecting humans, nonetheless causing pain and suffering." The vintage lady nodded, her expression considerate. "You're not the primary one to come back to me with a tale like that," she stated softly. "But you are the first one to talk about it in such element. Tell me, Barclay, do you recollect something else? Anything in any respect?" Barclay closed his eyes, looking to awareness on the fragments of reminiscence that had been nonetheless there, hidden simply past his reach. "There became a person," he stated slowly. A scientist. He changed into trying to forestall it, however. However, he did not make it in time. He died before he could forestall it." The antique female's eyes gleamed inside the dim light, a spark of popularity there. "And what's it that you want from me, Barclay?" she asked, her voice tender however insistent. "Do you need me that will help you find this machine? To forestall it from hurting everyone else?" Barclay opened his eyes, assembling her gaze immediately. "Yes," he said. "I want your help. I need to know what to do, how to prevent it. Because I cannot live like this anymore, understanding that I might be the handiest one that could make a distinction." The antique girl considered his words, her expression solemn. "I can inform you what you need to do," she stated at last. "But you ought to be brave, and also you must be organized to stand first-rate danger. The machine you talk of is protected by way of effective forces, and they will not give up without problems. Barclay took a deep breath, nodding slowly. "I'll do it," he stated. "I'll find a way." The vintage girl reached across the table, setting her gnarled, weathered hand on top of his. Her touch became tremendously heat and reassuring. "Then you ought to listen carefully," she stated. "You have to find the man who turned into running alongside the scientist. He is the important thing to preventing this device. He holds the information and the strength to deliver it down." Barclay felt a kickback run down his spine at her phrases. But I don't know who he is," he protested. "I don't even recognize in which to start searching." The antique female smiled, her eyes twinkling with expertise. "You will know him while you discover him, Barclay. He will have a scar on his left hand, a mark of the sacrifice he made to protect the scientist's work. And whilst you locate him, you have to convince him to join you on this fight. For collectively, you are the only ones who can forestall the system and stop the suffering it has triggered." Barclay nodded, his coronary heart racing with determination. "I'll discover him," he said firmly. "And together, we will prevent it." The vintage lady squeezed his hand, then launched it. "Then cross, Barclay," she said, her voice strong and clear. "Go and make the arena a higher region."